India have certainly produced their fair share of talented batsmen. In the history of Indian cricket, there have been few talked about quite as much as Shikhar Dhawan. His monumental rise to stardom was followed by a historical fall from grace after years of excellent performances for his country.
Shikhar Dhawan!
One thing that might surprise you about the early days of Shikhar Dhawan's career is that when he first took up cricket, he was a wicket keeper. Growing up in Delhi, there were plenty of clubs where Dhawan could learn to play the game. He began getting onto the radar when he started playing for the Delhi under-16s and excelling. It led to his call-up to the India under-17 squad in 2000 before even playing for the under-19 team when he was just 15 years old. So it always looks like Dhawan was destined for a role in the Indian national team. He excelled at under-19 level, being the top run scorer in the 2004 Under-19 World Cup and was named player of the tournament. So you would have thought that Dhawan would have made his Indian debut as soon as he got into professional cricket. But the competition was hard to pass in this Indian team when you were an opening batsman. Guys like Virendra Sehwag, Sachin Tendulkar, and Gautam Gambhir made it very difficult to get into the Indian squad. It didn't help that Dhawan had some disappointing performances for Indian B in 2005 and for India A in 2008. 2010 was a big year for Dhawan. He finally put together a run of performances that caught the attention of the selectors, making his international debut in October 2010 as part of a second-string Indian team. But his international career didn't start out particularly strong. His first ever international game was the second ODI of the 2010 series against Australia, where Dhawan was bowled out in his second ball. So not exactly the perfect start to his international career. Thanks to some solid performances in the IPL,
Delhi Capitals, Shikhar Dhawan posts back-to-back hundreds.
Dhawan was brought into the limited overs team for India in 2011 despite his poor debut. He would make his T20 debut in the Tour of West Indies, helping India beat the home side. Dhawan continued to struggle in the ODI format, scoring just a 50 in the series against the West Indies. He was dropped for the series in England the same year as was for the home series. After not playing for his country in 2012, Dhawan returned to the Indian side the following year. His domestic performances earned him a call-up to the Test team, where he will make his debut against Australia. It was a much better debut this time, with Dhawan scoring a majestic 187 on debut for his country. While the Indian team knew he was a gutsy batter, no one was expecting him to produce the fastest century ever on Test debut, coming off just 85 balls.
Shikhar Dhawan scored the fastest century on debut and was unbeaten.
Man of the match in your first game is pretty impressive. The second performance spurred Dhawan on. After a short time out with injury, he produced an impressive IPL performance that helped him gain selection in the Indian squad for the 2013 Champions Trophy. The tournament ended up being one of the best of Dhawan's entire career. He was the perfect partner for Rohit Sharma at the top of the order. He would score his first ever ODI 100 in the very first game of the tournament against South Africa. His second ODI 100 came just a game later, this time against the West Indies.
A century in Cardiff and now a century here at the Oval in the ICC Champions Trophy.
The steady 68 in semi-final helped India reach the final of the tournament. After contributing to India's first innings total, Dhawan had helped his side to a historic international victory.
Treadwell misses, Dhoni misses, but it doesn't matter. India win the Champions Trophy.
Being named player of the tournament, having averaged 90.75 across 5 matches. 2013 will be a phenomenal year for him. He was the top scorer of the series sweep against Zimbabwe, with the series including his third ODI century. He scored 5 centuries in 2013 and was named to the World ODI 11 by the ICC. Now, if you're enjoying the video, please like the video and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on a single upload. Now, back to the video. This was not the career builder that Dhawan had hoped for. He followed up a brilliant 2013 with a couple of years of poor form. He scored particularly poorly in series against South Africa and New Zealand at the start of 2014, following that up with an up-and-down performance at the 2014 Asia Cup. He was even dropped from the T20 squad during the World Cup that same year. He was also dropped from the team during the Test series against England after failing to score a half-century in any of his first 6 innings. His performances in limited overs cricket were a little bit more solid while he was out for the Test team. Dhawan was still pretty inconsistent in limited overs cricket. He scored 50 in the first game of the ODI series against the West Indies, but failed to put up any significant runs after that. He had an excellent series against Sri Lanka that included his 6th ODI century before a terrible run of performances against Australia and England. He did have a short-lived return to the Test team against Australia, but was dropped before the end of the series once again. For a long time, it just seemed like Dhawan's style of batting wasn't really suited to Test cricket. You would imagine that his confidence was low because his limited overs performances also struggled at times. So India's opening batsman enters the 2015 World Cup in poor form. He seemed to put that behind him in the very first game with a solid 73 before scoring an impressive 137 in the second game against South Africa. After 2 poor performances, he scored his 2nd century of the tournament against Ireland, helping India top their group. The performances continue until the knockout stages with Dhawan getting solid starts although unable to reach 50. Despite India losing in the semi-final, he was still the 5th top scorer of the entire tournament and was named to the team of the tournament by CricBuzz. Having come into the tournament off the back of a difficult run, it was impressive to see the opener step up so much in the biggest moments. India might not have reached the final, but it was certainly one of the highlights of Dhawan's career. He was rewarded with a return to the Test team, but an injured hand caused him to miss most of the tour of Sri Lanka. Dhawan wasn't really able to build off the back of that performance in Test cricket. After scoring a century in his return, it would take almost 2 years for him to score another century for India in Test cricket. Performances in limited overs cricket weren't that much better. Despite a great showing against Australia, he was dropped from the ODI side for most of 2016. It wasn't until the start of the following year that he was recalled, missing a similar period of time with the T20 side. After years of up and down play, 2017 was the year where everything clicked for Shikhar Dhawan. Good domestic performances allowed him to be recalled to the Indian squad for the 2017 Champions Trophy, a tournament where he had a huge amount of success in the past. It turned out to be a brilliant decision for India as he was once again the tournament's leading run scorer. The century against Sri Lanka put him as the batsman with the most centuries in the Champions Trophy. While it was not enough for India to claim the title, India's opening batsman launched the best year of his career. He immediately carried that good form into the tour of Sri Lanka, where Dhawan scored 2 centuries on the way to being named player of the series. He added another century in the ODI series. Personal issues meant he missed some of the cricket in the autumn. But he will return for the T20 series against Australia following that scored his highest ever international T20 score of 80 against New Zealand. He followed that up by becoming the fastest player to score 4,000 runs in ODI cricket, being named to the ODI 11th of the year by CricBuzz. 2018 was a difficult one for Dhawan. He continued to perform well in limited overs cricket, but his Test form started to dip. After 2 poor performances against South Africa, Dhawan scored what would end up being his last century in Test cricket in Bengaluru against Afghanistan. It was mainly his last century because following this performance, he had a torrid time on the tour of England.
Gets the edge. The crowd right behind Stuart Broad.
Against a loaded English bowling attack featuring James Anderson at his best, Dhawan struggled massively with the movement of the pitch and swaying the bowlers were creating. It led to him failing to score 50 in the first 4 tests before he was dropped for the final test of the series. He would finish his Test career with just 4 runs in his final game, being caught out by the LBW in both innings. It was a sad end to Dhawan's Test career.
That's ball 4, that looks straight, that looks very straight. Didn't take long for the finger to come up. That's the full length that causes problems.
He did manage to put that behind him in the autumn, adding 2 more ODI centuries in the Asia Cup, including one against Pakistan. He was player of the series when India toured Australia at the end of 2018 and had a brilliant year internationally in T20 cricket. Dhawan would finish the year as the top run scorer in T20 international cricket. This was all leading up to the 2019 World Cup, where Dhawan was expected to play a big part in India's side. But a fractured thumb kept him out for most of the tournament as India failed to win the World Cup. Despite getting closer to his late 30s, Dhawan was still a feature of the Indian side in the last few years. In 2020, he had the best IPL of his career. He became the first batsman in IPL history to score back-to-back hundreds. Dhawan added over 600 runs in that season, showing he is still a top-class T20 batter. Even though his performances have been good in the IPL, Dhawan only made one half-century for India in international T20 cricket after 2018. He was called out for a duck against Sri Lanka in 2021 and has not featured in the T20 international side since. A year later saw what would likely be the end of his ODI career. Dhawan scored poorly in series against South Africa, New Zealand, and Bangladesh. After failing to put up a double-digit performance against Bangladesh, he was dropped from the ODI side moving forward. It looks like we could be seeing the very end of Dhawan's international career. Back-to-back good performances in the IPL have not been enough to restore him to the Indian side. He has been on a steady decline over the last couple of years outside of some brilliant IPL performances. While it might not be the way he envisioned his international career ending, Shikhar Dhawan still should likely go down as one of the most talented batsmen in Indian cricket history. He was an aggressive batsman in all three formats, never afraid to take on the best bowlers in the world. His ODI performances are particularly legendary. A two-time Champions Trophy Golden Bat winner, Dhawan reached a level at international cricket that few batsmen have ever reached before. A truly world-class batsman who had one hell of a rollercoaster career. Indian fans will certainly miss Shikhar Dhawan whenever he chooses to retire. What do you think about Shikhar Dhawan's career? Put your thoughts in the comments down below, and did you know that Dhoni was almost a ticket collector his whole life? He also didn't start out playing cricket but actually another sport, so don't forget to watch this video next.